Thank you for joining us. We are now about to begin our session on the 50-liter home project from P&G. Please feel free to enter questions in the Q&A tab on the side of the screen. The speaker will take them at the end if time permits. I will now hand things over to our speaker, Frantz Beznik of P&G.
Thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I always like to introduce myself by saying that I'm in the business to make sustainable irresistible. And that's actually very consumer focused. If we could ever create options that are irresistible, then consumers would run to those options like there's no tomorrow. And that would actually accelerate the urgency to solve for climate change. So remember that as I go and walk you through the 50-liter home, because that's the continuous mindset of the innovation. You might wonder why P&G is doing 50-liter home, or what's the relation? Well, first, 70% of our products are actually using water in the home, in the bathroom, in the laundry, in the kitchen, in living space. In fact, there's not one water stream in the home that we do not touch. We touch shower streams with shampoos and body soaps. We touch kitchen faucet with dish products. We touch the laundry piping. We even touch the toilet. We've got big business in toilet paper. Every one of these single, stream of water we do touch. As a result, 65% of our patents and knowledge is in water chemistry. And we do have a huge reach out to consumers. So if we could really make sustainable irresistible over to 5 billion consumers in the world, we can do a lot. And that's how it's come to the genesis of the 50-liter home. 50-liter home is an ambition and an inspiration. The ambition is to live, to being able to live at 50 liters per day per person. That feels like 500 liters. The inspiration of 50 liter came from Cape Town. Back a couple of years ago, Cape Town was hit by a massive drought and the risk of a looming day called Day Zero, the day where there would be zero water off the tap. Time was so short to hit that day that the government of the city decided to constrain the population overnight, brutally, to 50 liter living per day per person. When the population was about 140, 150, between 100 and 150, say, so 3 times more. And when we actually brought over a P&G team onto Cape Town and living with consumers on the 50 liter living reality, we actually saw a few things that were shocking. We first would actually meet with beautiful long-haired women that would rather cut their hair than wash their hair, because it's easier to cut your hair when there's no water, or just 10 liters of water for the shower, than actually washing the hair. People would actually bring the shower water effluents over to the washing machine to run their loads, and then you're seeing that woman taking then yet again that second water effluents off of the washing machine into buckets to wash her surfaces, wash her floor, and finally she'd actually push that water off to the plants to water the plants around in the garden. Some would actually keep that last bucket to flush the one-time flush toilet they were allowed per day during that period. That was certainly sustainable. In fact, Cape Town did skip Day Zero, which was a good piece of news, but that was not irresistible. That was coming with a lot of sacrifices. And the reality is the African Day Zero of Cape Town issue is not an African problem. It's the global urbanization problem. Many cities around the world, East and West, are actually under the risk of a Day Zero over the next decade. It's not even a 2050 shot. In fact, you may have heard that a year and a half ago, Mexico City had 12 days of Day Zero, over 12 million inhabitants, just simply because they had an upset on the water supply, and there's so much on the lagging edge of supply that they actually could not supply for these 12 million inhabitants. You probably heard stories in India, and we know about water security in Beijing. We know about the UK, believe it or not. It's running very dry these days. France even, where I live nearby. This is really the global urban problems across all the big megalopolis of the world. And of course, the issue of water is not just supply, it's also about quality. It's also about cost. In fact, through the COVID crisis and lockdown, forced lockdown, we're hearing that a lot more of American households can't afford to pay their bills. And we know about big quality hazards and concerns on the water quality. The other aspect of the water is the heat it contains when we want to take showers or want to use hot water. In fact, hot water is a greenhouse gas hotspot in the home that we totally ignore. Let's zoom into the upper left-hand side of that chart, focusing on the showering job. So this is actually a graph that shows what when we actually showering ourselves, this is the contribution of the various components of the act of showering onto the greenhouse gas. And what we're saying is, while you're using a shampoo, using raw materials, shampoo in the form of shampoo and bottles, you're using the packaging as in form of bottles, most usually. We actually are creating, manufacturing, these material in manufacturing sites, whether it's the bottles or the formulations. We're transporting shampoo bottles once assembled from plants to distribution centers, from distribution centers to retail, from retail to home. We are actually also, once the shower is taken, taking this material back into recycling and waste treatment, whether it's the packaging or whether it's the water. And yet all of these components are only worth about 1% on the greenhouse gas total impact of taking a shower. 95%, that big long bar, is 95% is coming from the hot water we use. Same for laundering, about 70% is actually coming from the hot water we use during laundering, and the rest is splintered across the different other components. Surface cleaning, in the form of, for example, mop and bucket for the floors. Again, same story, 90% is the hot water you use, and the rest is about 2% splintered across the product you use, the packaging, the manufacturing, etc., etc. Same story all over again, and hand dish. And no surprise then that if we look at our homes, your home, my homes, any mid-class plus homes in the world, in an urban world, actually water heating is a second source of greenhouse gas in the home. The first one is space heating, so literally heating our spaces. The second one is water heating, then cooking, then appliances, lighting, and the cooling of spaces. That's the second source of greenhouse gas in the home, and that's a massive scarcity issue looming at the horizon. That gives two very good reasons to actually worry about water in our homes. So that's the ambition. How do we get really the world moving from the 200s to 500s, 100 to 300, 100 to 200 over US, Europe, or Asia down to 50 liter, but in a way that it's going to be an irresistible change. How do we make 50 liter equals 500 liter? And that's how, that's the ambition. And that's how we want to change totally the paradigm, the Cape Town paradigm, I call it, which is, moving from the questions, how do we get people to live on 50 liter per day per person, to how we can make homes that run at 50 liter per day per person, that we feel like 500 liter. Make sustainable 50 liter, irresistible 500 liter. There's actually really two big innovation territories to tackle to create those possibilities. The first one is really inside the home, in the form of how we can think about reusing water across appliances, within appliances. How do we enable new generations of products that can actually purify the water after use in situ? And imagine new sets of consumables. How do we actually create intelligent systems that self-monitor water, the water mass balance and the water management and the quality, so that the consumers never have to worry about, how to manage the water and especially their 50 liter whole quota. There's also a big need to reinvent the outside of the homes. Of course, if now we cut down the water inside the home from say 200 to 50, 3x, 4x for the majority of the world, we've got to think about how we're going to readapt even in terms of new builds, reinvent water supply and treatment. How about we're going to think about decentralized systems, which are much closer supply chain of water supply and treatment. You could imagine that at the district level versus having this big central system at the outskirts of the cities, where the water has to travel miles and miles and miles to actually circulate around underneath of it. That would actually combine pretty well with decarbonized electricity grids. And yet again, we would want to have digital internet, water, energy to manage those systems, and especially sync in the outside and the inside of the home. So this is the game plan. We've got a home. It's pretty easy. We've got a sandbox. It's our home. And you can imagine all kinds of water streams now, between the different spots of use, or actually as a self-recycling, schematic. It's our game plan and up to us to innovate. But the idea is we're going to have 50 liter fresh water need and 50 liter, down, no more. That's the challenge we want to set for ourselves. What's important, and you heard me say that a few times already, it's got to be irresistible. So it's not about a story of Cape Town yet again. We want to actually make Cape Town an irresistible experience through the innovations we can bring in homes. We want that to the point of being aspirational. We want the world to be absolutely irresistibly tempted and attracted by the aspiration of 50 liter home. But as well, we want to make it accessible and functional, retrofitable. What data would actually be totally critical to all this. In fact, I like to say the key is going to be to bring the invisible visible. One of the reasons why people don't even actually know about this is because they don't see. Water heating is invisible in homes. It goes through the pipes, it goes underneath. We don't see that. So how do we actually bring to bear the data? How do we actually visualize? How do we make people? How do we stimulate people? How do we incentivize people? How do we actually bring artificial intelligence to actually, enable to enhance the experience of the water throughout the homes, manage the water mass balance of the home, personalize the water experience? We want to make that irresistible. Sky is the limit. And of course, how do we create frictionless and experience with that? Most importantly, how do we provide total privacy and security of data, and how do we actually stimulate trust from consumers? And I think this is an area where blockchain would certainly be absolutely critical. After shifting from the in homes to the outside of the homes, these are systems that already exist today, and this is a chart that our friends from Suez and UNGA have provided me with in terms of what are technology blocks that we can bring in the outside, and you're seeing these things are pretty mainstream business for this type of water companies. But look at the fourth box about decentralized treatment. So those companies are starting to really think about decentralized grids, if you will, and of course integration of smart technologies to manage supply system treatment. As we go down to 50 liter per day per person from 200, 500 liter per day per person, I think we can then rely on next generation of technologies to heat the water that are way more efficient than gas boilers or big sort of bulk fossil fuel-based heating systems. Think about 50 liter home as 10 liters spent around the home where the water gets reused. And 10 liter, heating 10 liter is very easy, as opposed to heating 500 liters. Requires absolutely bulky systems. So as we being able to decentralize or cut down the amount of water use and decentralize them at different spots of the home, we can then really hopefully rely on very efficient heating technologies, and then get to electricity and renewable energy source, to the point that I believe 50 liter home could really enable to pave the way towards fully decarbonized home as a next ambition. Of course, I told you about PNG touching every stream of water in the home. In fact, PNG between the last intervention between the consumer and the drainage front and the sewages, but we are not creating homes. We need systems change innovation that are way beyond us. We need partnering, and you're seeing, in this chart, the core set of partners we're rallying around the initiative of 50 Home to create the innovations, to create the solutions that will actually enable 50 liter that feels like 500 liters. Electrolux as dish and kitchen appliance, laundry and kitchen appliances. Kohler as one of the top bathroom appliance manufacturer. UNGA as energy supply. Suez as water supply. So we've got the hot water with these two companies. Arcadis as big consulting engineering companies for city and urban infrastructures. We're working with our partners in World Bank Group, Water Resource Group, the World Economic Forum, and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, because this ultimately has got to be a public and private multi-stakeholder group. It just cannot be a set of private companies doing that. We need, and the reason is because, as I said, as much as we want that to be aspirational and absolutely irresistible to the end users and the people on the planet, we also want to hopefully make that a standard of living. So that homes come as a 58 home as a standard. The 4 deliverables of the coalition are very important. It's actually a fourfold set of challenges we set for ourselves. The first one is about educating the consumers, and digital will be a key there in terms of making the invisible visible and making consumers responsible about water consumption. We're creating the relationship of the consumer with their water, not in a guilt way, but in a way that is joyful and responsible. Innovation, it's obvious, and I've touched on those inside the homes, outside the homes, new systems that need to happen. Regulations, we are actually gonna, play around wastewater reuse in the home. We need to innovate regulations and policies in that field because there's probably a lot to be done in that area to make that happen. And last but not least, how we can create demonstration through implementation of pilots in few cities. And that's actually leading to this chart about how we're seeing our innovation and leadership agenda as we come forward. First, we've actually pre-announced the coalition at Davos last January, and with a few of our partners. WBCSD was with us, Suez was with us, and P&G. We had a nice representation as well with the public space in the person of the Minister of Finance in the Punjab in India as a potential customer. So we really want to launch we will get ready to launch the coalition in the coming month or two, and we will basically start really rolling up our sleeves to decide where do we want to plan our first pilot, where we prove in a real setting, urban environment, that we can make 50 liter that feels like 500 liter in an apartment setting, for example. The 2020 to 2025 time period would be where we want to enlarge coalition ecosystem with other partners and innovators. And then we can start to really deliver the pilots. I'd wish that within the next 2 years, we are able to actually get into a city in apartments, in a few apartments, or maybe in a high-rise building, full apartments, where we actually are transforming all of those into 50-liter home living that feels like 500. And of course, as we test and pilot in different cities, that will inform our path to scale, so that we can really expand globally. And you're seeing on the upper side of this sheet, the graph, the way we actually look at the clustering the world. You're seeing India with Delhi, Beijing in China, Los Angeles in the US, and Mexico City in Latin America, really to cover the space of, advanced world where the water is already affluent today, advanced living. In the case of new build environment for China, or retrofit environment like Los Angeles. And then on the other side of the quadrant, looking at countries where water is not that affluent today. And again, look at areas where you've got a lot of new constructions, like India and Delhi, and areas where it's already well built, and we would be looking at retrofitting. So as we learn in those 4 different settings, we can hopefully map the world and being able to scale, so that over the next decade following 2025, we can expand hopefully significantly. It's not going to be just in 10 years, but hopefully we'll make a lot of progress in 10 years. So that's our 50-liter home dream. But if we would imagine homes like this one, where if you start at the right hand side of the shower point, you would actually take a shower, and the water could actually be recycled, for example, to be thrown through to toilets. What if your washing machine could also recycle water and or throw it into the toilets? What if you'd have dishwashers and that are very sustainable and effective way to do dish and only do water off the tap from hand washing jobs or little touch-ups jobs, so that and what if the water would be visible? People love to see the water, and for some reasons in our homes today, we've actually compartmentalized water in boxes underneath in places we can see them. We'd love to see water flowing in front of our eyes. Of course, this is a concept car or concept home, but hopefully this will turn some shape of reality in the near future. Thank you very much for listening to me today.
Thank you so much, Frantz, for just delivering an amazing presentation. I was monitoring the chat, and just you could see all these emojis coming up from the people who are just honestly really intrigued and really excited about what P&G is doing with this initiative. We had a few questions come through. I'd love just to take the last 7 minutes here and walk through them. So first of all, I'm just familiar most of all with P&G being products that are in my bathroom, in my laundry room. But to hear about the thought you're putting behind these ideas, and that they're not just in these two specific rooms in a house, but this is a citywide initiative. How hard was it to get support and build traction for this idea? And what did that process look like as you were brainstorming and deciding how you're going to fulfill this project?
It's a great question. It's been a long process. It feels like it's all cooked and nice, and it's almost a no-brainer. But it actually took a couple of years of a couple of us in the company to start with, being totally obsessed about the issue. Colin Clark, a technical partner, and me, really putting our heads against the 50 home. And so the genesis moment was that moment of aha in Cape Town. We were like, oh my God, 58 home is the living. We need to absolutely make that irresistible. We'll be back. We'll make that an irresistible experience. So that's the aha moment, and that becomes then a total obsession. I would say it's the moment you're obsessed with something. Well, first off, there's no stoppage. You would actually just go. We've been actually absolutely spending a lot of time showing that vision and refining that vision by putting it out there and getting critiques. Been a couple of times at Davos actually over the last couple of years to present it, even at stage where it was very raw, to actually being able to early up front get a lot of augmentation and thinking into this from a very variety of people. Whether I would remember literally, and that's probably when I crossed Sandra and the GBBC folks, literally crossing, just walking out that Promenade Street and stopping everywhere in every single spot to actually talk about this and get people to react and enrich it. So, really getting a lot of enrichment of the vision. And once you've got that, and you feel like it's not just P&G's vision, but it's augmented with the critiques and the augmentation of all these big brilliant minds and thinking, then it's really about how we go at different companies and talk about that. So, been marching with into Suez, been marching to the Quarter. People be marching to all the partners and presenting that and having again other levels of refinements. But I would say the fact that this thing would have been been out really getting nurtured and enriched made it so strong that it became almost irresistible without making it too presumptuous. But because I really think that the augmentation from the people was the key to turning it into something compelling. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I love what you said there in the beginning. Once you're obsessed with something, there's really no stopping you. So that's super exciting. Just hearing kind of what are the thought leaders at P&G thinking about on a day-by-day basis. So going forward, is this initiative, in your opinion, going to be driven more by shifting consumer behaviors towards their water consumption, or is it going to be more about adding innovative technologies, or maybe a mixture of both?
I think yes, exactly, a mixture of both. And I think this is where Tanya Stephens from P&G has been extremely helpful to us, because I think, the duo I was talking about became a trio, and that's actually being, the way to actually create the mix of possibilities. So first off, I'm not sure I like to say changing people's behavior more so than I will tell. We will create something irresistible, so there's actually no pain in changing behaviors. So that's really very, very important. So I'm obsessed about what are the value drivers, what are the new benefit space we can absolutely unleash that will be so irresistible that people will just go and jump on them, and it needs to be intuitive. So I'm always referring to people to the iPhone, because this thing is irresistible. When the power fails, I'm so anxious, I can't wait to have it running out. So I'm going to do anything. And frankly, the first time I had it in hand, I was not used to doing an iPhone, but the habit change was totally intuitive. So first off, make absolutely this thing irresistible, bring new benefits, new value drivers, and this is what we're very busy with. And we believe at P&G, knowing our consumers very intimately, can actually do that well with the collaboration of our partners. Now, the second is we need to bring new technologies, and I think the digital space is absolutely really rich. And so I'm so keen to actually, I've been very much close to Tanya over the last couple of years as she's joined the team, but also with GBBC, because this is really what making invisible visible and playing with those technologies to make the experience totally frictionless is going to be a huge enhancer. So at the core, make things irresistible and then enhance with technology. If that makes sense.
Yes, definitely. And just one last question before we wrap up the session. Tanya spoke yesterday and was mentioning that P&G has a goal for net carbon neutrality in 2030. So we have the Director of Sustainability here on the line with us, and I would love, what initiatives is P&G taking that you're most excited about to help reach that goal?
Well, the totality of the scope 1, scope, so there's really three scopes, scope 1 and 2. That's the announcement we made last July, and I think we've already got a lot of progress in terms of our production sites and our raw material sourcing. So, I don't have the whole granularity on the entire program, and to be honest, this is starting work. I think the production sites is really something that we're really working hard on, and we've made a lot of progress in terms of, for example, supplying all our fabric and home care plants with renewable energy entirely is a massive undertaking. So I think this is really important, because I think not only it's important for us, P&G, but it's going to be important for us to create also new possibilities for 50 home. I've got to tell you, 70% of the footprint of P&G is in scope 3, is in the hot water reuse. 70% of P&G's total footprint is in the hot water reuse. And so I've got to be very selfishly saying, oh my God, if, as we are able to neutralize our operations, scope 1 and 2, and actually advance of scope 3, which is 70% of our footprint, P&G is absolutely blasting a huge, massive progress on the total footprint. So I think the combination of both would really be holistically looking at scope 1, 2, and 3 in a massive way across. And that's exciting.
That is extremely exciting. Wow, that 70%, that's a number that really just sinks in when you say it. And then we look back to the presentation you just gave, and it looks like this is a fantastic solution for that. So Frantz, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the GBBC and on from all of our audience. We really appreciate just the insights you're sharing. And also just personally, I'm really encouraged by the initiatives that P&G is taking to just make this a better world.
Absolutely, we'll do it. We'll do it with the help of you and others. So please speak to Tanya or myself if you feel like you can contribute. Thank you so much for hosting me today.
Thank you, Frantz.